Hi, I'm Jack Baruzzini, and you're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, where we talk about the hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. And joining me today are Jeff Haecker. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Jack.
And Lisa Jones. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Jack.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Jack.
It is good to be back. I was out for a few weeks, trapped in a Jaffa training camp, so finally escaped that.
Hopefully you learned some moves while you were there.
I did, faked my death, all that fun stuff. Today we are discussing the 8th episode of Season 9 of SG1, Babylon. As SG1 searches for the Sodan, a lost tribe of the Jaffa, Mitchell is captured after wounding a Sodan warrior in an ambush. While Mitchell is held captive and trained for a ritualistic death match, learning the Sodan's reverence for the ancients and witnessing a prior's attempt to convert them to Origin, the SGC revives the wounded Sodan warrior, Volnek. Despite their efforts, Volnek remains steadfast in his belief in the Ori. Mitchell and his captor, Jolan, develop a respect for one another, and Mitchell warns him of the Ori's true nature. During the match, Jolan seemingly kills Mitchell, but it is a staged event using a special elixir. A little bit too much of it, apparently. Jolan vows to warn his people about the Ori, and Mitchell is able to return to Earth, and they end up returning the still unconvinced Volnek, who is sent back to his planet. What are your thoughts on this episode, Jeff?
Yeah, I like this one a lot. The Sodan are pretty cool. I wish something like this had been done earlier in the show, because there's a few more with them. It's not a lot, though, so that is kind of a bummer, because they are a pretty cool group. The Volnek is a great, I don't remember the actor's name, but I really liked him and Mitchell's chemistry. The back and forth, they're kind of growing respect. It was, almost like a Teal'c-Jack relationship kind of developing there, and that was really cool. And has Tony Todd, and always love to see Tony Todd as he was in this. He's Lord Haicon, but he's been in everything too. So always great to see him, and yeah, it was a fun one.
Yeah. What about you, Lisa?
Yeah, it's a very Cameron Mitchell episode, and I really did enjoy it. I liked just really getting to see more of his personality, and we got to kind of dive deeper into his strength, not just physical strength, but like his mental toughness that he had to exhibit here. We had some nice little moments back at the base, with Carter and Teal'c, and even Walter got at least one line that was nice. It was all going fine and dandy for me until we got the prior.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, it's all about the Ori. But no, overall, I agree with Jeff. I hadn't thought about it, but I agree that it would have been nice to have seen this kind of episode maybe a season or two earlier. It is interesting to me that they were all about enlightenment and the ancients and all of that, and they hated the other Jaffa. So that was a real twist. We hadn't seen that before. Usually Teal'c gets some respect on the Jaffa trying to be free and all that, and they didn't care. Mm-hmm. So that was very, very interesting.
What about you, Victor?
Yeah, it was Amok Time with the Last Samurai here.
Basically.
Yeah. No, it's a fun episode. I really like this one. I think it's a really good, solid Stargate episode. Like you, Lisa, I was kind of disappointed when the prior showed up, and it's like, oh, I thought we could just have a nice, fun Stargate episode. The prior here is played by William B. Davis, the cigarette smoking man, who doesn't really have much to do in this episode except show up and walk around. And of course, I love seeing Tony Todd in everything. Unfortunately, we lost him last November, but it worked right up until his death, basically, if you look at his IMDb page. But yeah, I like it. It's a good Colonel Mitchell episode. We get to see more of his sense of humor, his grace under fire there, as well as Ben Browder doing a lot of his own stunts and fighting in this one as well. So I really enjoy this one.
Nice. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I liked that it was more of a character-focused, kind of like a character study of Mitchell under these circumstances. I do think it's funny, though, that way they talk about the Sodan, and they've been doing this since they've started talking about them, is like these are these lost ancient Jaffa tribe that everyone knows about, and it's like we've never heard about them before, even mentioned, and that's just because they hadn't come up with them. But it is always funny when you get something like that introduced this late in a story as something that's like always been around and is apparently a big deal.
Yeah.
An ancient Jaffa legend.
Yeah.
And they even mentioned Keb, like they've been searching for Keb or whatever. And I was waiting for Mitchell wasn't there, but I was waiting for I've been there, you know.
Mhm.
Oh.
You know, could have given them some Oma de Sala lessons on, you know, if you smell the smoke, you realize the meal's cooked a long time ago, or whatever other philosophy nonsense she says.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I did like I like that planet they live on, the very rustic huts, but these like glaringly red, almost like polyester looking the banners just seem to very much clash with the rest of it. It's like, where are you making these bright red artificial material?
I don't know. Maybe they sneak out and trade for it, or maybe there's a lot of those like vermilion worms or something that they
True.
can. Because the interesting thing about the planet, there's two kind of interesting things about the technology that don't really pay off in this episode. The first is that the warriors of the Sodan, they have these ancient cloaking devices, personal cloaking devices. So they're able to attack SG1 and then SG22, which is cool that we're up to 22. Gets to scare them off. And then the other is a transportation device, which we don't really explore either, that transports them from the gate to someplace, and we're not sure exactly where. Is it on the planet? Is it on a moon? The Prometheus apparently does a whole bunch of... They're on the planet still, just kind of over a mountain range, but the Prometheus, after searching for 2 weeks, can't find them, which is... I don't know what that says about their scanning technology. They're Asgard scanners, but
I guess having Prometheus scan the moon was a reference back to Mayborn and O'Neill getting, remember their whole, got the name of that episode though, where they were on the moon and they kept looking and looking and looking for them.
Yeah. I just don't know how the Prometheus didn't find him, but it, they had to make it take place over a series of a couple of weeks so that Colonel Mitchell could get good at fighting and,
maybe their technology had like a shield.
Yeah, it could have that.
Cloaking or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there should have been a line about that if they were going to go that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time the prior came to the village, did he like get through the gate and then just like run really fast over the mountains to find him?
Yeah.
Or like, how did he get there?
How did he get in?
Yeah.
I mean, they can set themselves on fire and do all sorts of weird things. Maybe he can teleport.
Yeah.
True. Or maybe they welcomed him. I mean, maybe they originally tried to fight them or do whatever like they did SG1 and he burned somebody alive or whatever he does. And they went, oh, wow.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's because they respect the ancients and they think they're, this to them is kind of the closest thing they've ever seen. And so I think it was probably just they encountered them somewhere on one of the, because they think they talk about they have to go on raids to get junior symbiotes in order to for the next generation of Jaffas. They have to get the symbiote in as they age. So I'm assuming they just kind of encounter them at some point and they just were like, oh, these guys are like ancients. Let's see what they're about. And because Lord Haecker is very, he's not accepted them the origin yet, but he's he seems like he might be close because of he's wanting something to believe in like the ancients. So I think that's at least kind of my headcanon for that.
Mm-hmm. It is funny though that with most of the Jaffa have worshipped the Gould, and then these guys go from revering the ancients to almost going all in with the Ori. It's like, did the Jaffa just need somebody to worship? Like, they have some sort of like pathological need for that.
Yeah, I think so. The other interesting thing too was a lot of this could have been resolved very quickly if, on the planet Colonel Mitchell had told Haecker, or in the, SGC, they told Volnek, oh, by the way, we've basically wiped out the Gould, so you're not going to get any more symbiotes, for forever, basically, because there are no more system lords or Gould hatcheries to raid anymore. So Tritonin is really your only option if you want your people to survive. And I think that could have, wrapped things up pretty quickly.
They could have
Well, I
viewed
think
it as a threat, though, and that would have made them more obstinate because they already weren't on their side.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think too the Dakar Jaffa, they're not all on Tritonin. I don't think. I think they're still, because when the Tritonin first was introduced, the Jaffa that they were like the free Jaffa camps were like, we don't want to rely on on humans because that's the same as relying on the Gould. So I think I think the Dakar Jaffa are still, maybe they got control of Jaffa or Gould hatcheries or whatever you want to call them, to get the symbiotes, but I don't think they're all on Tritonin yet because they're they don't want to rely on humans because they would perceive that as a weakness, especially with Garrick in charge.
Mm-hmm.
That is an interesting conundrum. They don't want to rely on the humans for anything, whether it be Tritonin or whatever, but yet they want to be free, but they still need either the humans or the Gould. They need one of them. That's interesting.
Yeah, and we've seen cases where even like baby Gould can take over a person, right? Or
Yeah.
like dumb Gould can take over a person, and so it seems like a liability. Just like, oops, we dropped a Gould, and now we have another Gould to deal with again.
Yeah. I guess in theory, Jaffa lived for a long, long time, but in theory, if you stop, I forgot what the ceremony was called, like when Teal'c's son received his Gould.
Primta,
If you
I
stop,
think.
what was it called?
Oh yeah, Primta, yeah.
Primta. If you stop
empouching.
doing that, then you wouldn't need the Gould, right? Eventually, as they all age.
Well, that's what I think so too. But then we see with the the Moloch people that they were still going out and looking for Gould for their like younger siblings. So it's not really clear to what extent the Jaffa would just kind of revert back to being humans if they stopped doing that. So
Yeah,
I don't know. That's a question mark.
Well, I think they're born with the pouches, but I think it's the Primta is implanting the symbiote in the pouch for the first time.
Mm.
And if they don't do that, then the Jaffa could be subject to, because they don't have an immune system. So I think it was when Ryak was going through that, they had to, they were trying to give him medicine, but that wouldn't have solved the problem long term because he doesn't have an immune system. So I think eventually it's like you Primta, or you either live in an isolated sterile
Bubble.
environment.
Boy, the plastic bubble.
Yeah.
Jaffa,
Yeah,
plastic
or
bubble.
or you get a symbiote in order to stay alive. So I think that's kind of the curse there, is you have to rely on them in order to survive. So but yeah, then the Tritonin could be a replacement, but then they'd have to rely on humans. But I'm like, why don't you just show them how to make it, and make sure they can get the materials themselves, and that it's not relying on you anymore, and everyone should be happy. But
It would ruin the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, have we seen like Jaffa scientists and things like that? Because I feel like every Jaffa we've ever run into, they live in temples or wooden huts or very medieval kind of surroundings. Like they have their staff weapons and they can fly ships and stuff, but they don't strike me as the most like biotech leaning people.
No.
No.
Well,
I don't think we ever see
that
them
to themselves too. They wouldn't have wanted their slaves to know how to use develop technology and potentially overtake them. So sure, as it's almost they're almost like Klingons. There's very few Klingon scientists, but there are a couple. So presumably there's, as they Jaffa are free for a longer period of time, they'll branch out from just being warriors and only being warriors or support, and will develop in their own science and stuff, especially as they interact with other species.
But I do like the characters in this episode. Not so much Volnek because he's kind of a jerk, but Jolan, who we later find out is his brother, and they're played by brothers Jason George and Jarvis George. Jolan is real. I mean, he's charismatic. He's training Colonel Mitchell for this special rite where Colonel Mitchell, presumably having killed a Sodan warrior, must now engage in mortal combat and be killed by, the closest relative to that person he's slain, which he doesn't know is Jolan, the guy who is training him. And so we get some really good moments between them where they kind of bond. We get some really good training montages and kind of underscored by these two children who are like doing something in the grass, like picking rice or I don't know. But they're at first they're watching and Colonel Mitchell gets his butt kicked a bunch and falls on the ground. The kids are like, tee-hee, look at this guy. And then as he gets good, they cut over to the kids and the kids are like, wow, he's getting good, So it's a cool little touch on the episode there. And I really like, the different training exercises that they put him through, including the little race with the different colored tags on the trees that show the route that he's supposed to navigate in a certain amount of time. So that was nice too.
It definitely wasn't boring. It was interesting. And the fact that Jolan was cloaked and invisible, and if he went the wrong way, he'd knock him over. And it was entertaining. I liked it.
And they have these little timers that are bags of sand that they poke a hole into. And I guess Peter, this is in the script, but that they have these bags of sand, but Peter DeLuise, the director, was so he was so upset with the concept of this that it would be, impossible to mark time this way, because if you make the hole bigger, then more sand would come out. And so he actually gave Colonel Mitchell, or he gave Ben Browder a line about, how it's not a very effective timing device.
I like that. And I also like the line where it's when they're training. I think it's kind of toward one of their last training sessions, and they're, he's saying, you're coming along quite well. And he's like, yeah, so you can kill me, right? Of course. You can tell, you can kind of predict where the episode's going. And of course, we know Ben Browder isn't going anywhere on the show, so he's going to make it out. But I like that, that Jolan he's developing that respect, and it, as it gets to the end, he keeps him alive, and we'll get to see the Sodan at least a couple more times for that. So I'm glad they didn't, make it a one-off episode. But yeah, I wish they'd done just more. And if they'd done this a couple seasons ago and had been more of a thread, that would have been cool. Like we were saying,
yeah,
would have been much more interesting than the Garrick subplot we're getting with the Jaffa.
Yeah,
for sure. These guys were much more interesting than Garrick.
Yeah,
maybe it's we're spending more time with them. And Garrick just pops up and is, I don't know, rude and uninteresting.
They had a lot they could have done with the free Jaffa, and I feel like they kind of sidelined that for the Ori.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like how the Ori really don't poison the village again, and that becomes what the episode is about. It's more, Mitchell and the SGC people trying to convince the Sodan warriors that the Ori don't have, their best interests or enlightenment at heart. And that's kind of the point of the bonding between Mitchell and Jolan, is that he's, trying to convince them. And Jolan is coming to see that, oh, maybe these Ori aren't, the benefactors they appear to be. And I think that's why he keeps, Mitchell alive, at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I have to make a note that I was watching this with my oldest daughter, and she recognized Jason George playing Jolan immediately as Dr. Ben Warren on Grey's Anatomy for 14 years. So I stopped watching Grey's a long time ago, but she knew who he was instantly. So I thought that was kind of fun.
Is that still on?
I think so.
Yeah, 29 seasons. I don't know. It's getting up there.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's still on. I just like,
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so he's been on 167 episodes.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
It's a good long career there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, okay, one little bone to pick at the very beginning. So you remember how we've talked about Cameron Mitchell and Daniel Jackson look a lot alike?
Mm-hmm.
So at the start of this episode, they dress them exactly alike, with
the
black
cap.
bandanas around their heads even. The only difference in their appearance was that Daniel Jackson, Michael Shanks was wearing glasses. But otherwise, they looked exactly alike. And I just cracked up because all the references that have been made to them, looking very similar, and then they had been dressing them differently up until now.
Yeah, it's to the point where if I just if I look away and I'm not really paying attention to the screen, I'll have to look twice before I know which character is on screen if they're not on a close up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben Browder is a much more physical actor than Michael Shanks is too. So Michael Shanks will stand kind of motionless during a scene, and that's just I think because of their shooting schedule was such that they couldn't do a lot of different blocking. So they would have just the characters stand in a line when they were talking and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the earlier Stargate episodes, but Ben Browder is always kind of moving. He's kind of weaving or ducking around and stuff. So you can kind of just tell by the level of physicality too, even if you can't tell by their physical appearance.
My husband noticed that Ben Browder has smaller ears than Michael Shanks. So
there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I did appreciate in this one, written by Damian Kindler, so we get a title which doesn't really make much sense, but but he did make religious faith a little bit more sympathetic in this episode than the Robert C. Cooper Avalon episodes. So it's as he's trying to convince Lord Haecker about the these Ori are offering you the shortcut to enlightenment, but that's not really what you're after.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a cool scene that was shot at night too. I did they usually don't do night shoots because it throws off their schedule. It's more expensive, but we do get they built this really nice set into the hill of, little buildings and stuff. And so we get to see that at night, and Tony Todd gets to play a little lute, which I guess was his idea. He's like, I want to, for this night scene, I want to be playing a lute or something. So they got him that, and then, shot the scene. And when they got it back and the producers and stuff were reviewing it, they're like, why did you give him that?
He asked for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you, they build the little huts, they built those for the episode?
The huts they did, the big kind of house that Lord Haecker lives in, that looks a little too established.
Yeah.
On the commentary, Peter DeLuise joked that it was Brad Wright's vacation home or something, but I don't think that's true.
So maybe it was there and they kind of built around it.
Yeah, or it was in a different location entirely, maybe.
Okay. Because it did look, it looked a lot nicer than just usually what you see on a one-time set.
Yeah, and I did appreciate that they built the huts and then they shot in them too. So they weren't just the external, dressing. They shot the huts that they built, they shot inside and then went out of them and stuff. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Our son was just really happy it wasn't the same, Avalon Village set that they've been using a lot this season on both SG1 and Atlantis.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Get a little bit of a visual variation there.
Mm-hmm.
Where they shot and with that house, it almost looked like it was some kind of park, and maybe you could rent that cabin, and they just built those huts on wheels so they could use them for the shoot.
Maybe since I'm going to be up there next summer, maybe I should look that up and maybe we could stay there. Or Jack's cabin, either one.
Jack's cabin would be awesome.
Go fishing in the pond that might have fish.
Yeah. Maybe Carter's house is a VRBO. Maybe. I don't know.
Which house? The one with Pete or the other one?
Not the Pete house. No way.
not the Pete house.
The one where, what's his name, built the Stargate in
Orlin.
the basement.
Orlin, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so does the rest of Stargate know that Dr. Lamb is General Landry's daughter? Is that established?
I don't think so. They haven't come out and said it to the rest of the team, and she's still being also kind of a jerk to General Landry.
Yeah. She's like one of my teenage daughters sometimes.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you did a great job, saving the guy. Why? So you can interrogate him.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, we're going to ask him some questions. That's kind of what we do here
Yeah.
at this military installation that you work at.
Yeah, I'm like, you came to work there. Quit.
Yeah.
He's your boss. I don't know. The whole thing irritates me.
I thought I'd be rescuing puppies.
Yeah, I didn't. I don't really care for her character so far because she's just so antagonistic, and it just
Mhm.
comes across like she's obviously got a chip on her shoulder about her dad, and so she's gonna go work with him to take it out on him. Like,
Yeah.
why?
It's not professional at all.
No.
And that does get better as the series goes along. They do get become more, to have more of a relationship. Maybe not quite like I'm going to call you we're a family again, but at least more or a closer relationship, and maybe leading to her being more reconciled. So, but yeah, that was just kind of funny of her. She's like, you're going to patch him up just to kill him, or just to ask him to interrogate him, and in Stargate, we haven't really seen humans torture aliens, at least SGC torture aliens. We've seen probably, I don't know if we've seen the other organizations do it, but I mean, if she was working for the NID or something like that, I could see that. But I mean, you're working at the SGC. They're not really torturing other people there. They may hold them and ask them questions, but.
Yeah. Colonel Mitchell's missing. Maybe it's a good idea. I don't know.
Yeah, he's an enemy combatant at this point. So yes, you're going to interrogate him.
And General Landry does get another kind of good general moment in there where, it's been 2 weeks. And he says, look, we're, the IOC is who is basically funding the SGC at this point is, concerned that our one ship is pretty much tied up doing this, and we're spending a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And Sam tries to, guilt him with like, we don't leave people behind. And he's like, I'm familiar with the concept, no, give me something I can use, or the next order I give will be to, declare him MIA, which, is something Hammond would also do, I think. So it was good to see General Landry kind of have to, put his foot down.
Mm-hmm.
Because he comes across as like this big teddy bear, but, he also has a, SGC to run.
I think it also shows that times have changed a little bit. In the first few seasons, when one of them went missing, like 100 days or something, they dedicated literally 100 days to finding Jack and where to go and digging him out and all this stuff. And times have changed. I mean, there's a lot more political pressure. There's a lot more oversight into the SGC and how they're using their resources. And I liked the fact that it wasn't just, we're just going to sit here and do everything and no big deal for forever. It gave them that clock, you've got to get it done. We've got to have pressure, time constraints, So I liked that.
Also, like, there's at least 22 SG teams at this point, and plenty of people have been lost off world by this time. So it's like, yeah, he's one of the main characters, but also that's kind of what happens.
And they haven't gotten too attached to him yet, so.
True.
Them or us?
Well, no, I guess he did save all their lives and stuff in the Antarctic, so.
That's what.
And the time before, when Carter was trying to save Jack, she developed like the particle laser or whatever that was. So that's a technology that can be put to use. He's just missing on this planet, and they can't find him. So unless she develops like a super advanced scanner, which she's not going to, that's more advanced than the Asgard. So it's kind of a different scenario there too.
But she does make a reference about Dr. Lee.
Yeah, poor Dr. Lee.
Which was, it was, I mean, I hate to say I chuckled, but it was kind of funny where she just says like, he's starting to get feeling back in his legs, or something like that. Like, okay.
After working on the ancient teleportation device, yeah.
But I like that it wasn't just able to, they weren't, I mean, I love when Carter has things to do, but they weren't just sitting around doing all of the technology stuff to save him. It had to play out how it played out, which, it's good for the plot.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get like this kind of weird time filler thing with the other rebel Jaffa who comes in. And so the SGC has been unable to convince Volnek because he doesn't believe anything they say. And then they just like trot out this rebel Jaffa who is one of, Harrower's, so one of the original free Jaffa after Harrower was taken out by Apophis. They bring him in, and he basically says the same thing that they're saying, and he doesn't believe this guy either. And why would he? They could just round up anybody and march him in and tell him how bad the Ori are. So I don't know. I'm kind of with Volnek on that one. That was, not very convincing. And they're like, when we even showed him like video footage and he didn't believe it, I was like, well, yeah, I mean, why would you? So.
Yeah, if you're being held prisoner, whatever they show you, you're going to assume is propaganda. So,
yeah.
Not the most effective interrogation method.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you're Teal'c and you'll believe anything you see on video, because
there you go.
He's done that more than once, or versions of Teal'c have done that more than once.
I think that's Teal'c comes across as kind of like your grandparents when you show them when they see a video on Facebook that's clearly AI generated. Like, that's not real. That's not real. It's on the computer. It must be.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a leap for me that you have this Sodan warrior, and they immediately start talking to him about the Ori. I'm like, at the SGC.
Yeah.
Like, they have no idea if he's met the Ori. Like, they don't know the Prior's been there. But they immediately start talking to him.
That's a good point.
Why?
Like, did he offer that up? I'm trying to remember in the episode if there's any, because Mitchell knows it, but they don't. Yeah. They don't know it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that they would have known that until Mitchell came back. So
yeah,
that further kind of makes me understand why you wouldn't believe them, because they're taking the initiative to tell you this other person is not good before you've even met them.
Mm-hmm.
After they shot you.
Yeah, and they don't say like, oh, there's these people who are coming to villages. Like, have you seen them? Do you know them? They just flat out like, this is bad. I don't know. It maybe it was just an oversight in the script. Maybe there was something missing. I don't know, but I don't remember it jumping out to me originally, but this time around this loop, it jumped out at me.
Yeah, it's probably, it's just, I think it's one of those things they just left it out, but it's also, I kind of just, I try to headcanon it as best I can. And I just kind of think that they, the SGC had heard the tale of the Sodan. They heard them, like, maybe they heard they met up with a prior on this one world or something, and that's why they're trying to seek them out, because they don't want them to go to the Ori side. So they're they're trying to convince him otherwise. But yeah, like you said, that he's not going to believe him, because he's he's saying this other person's bad, but we're good. Believe us, we're the good guys.
Mm-hmm. Trust me, wink, wink.
Yeah, I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
Exactly.
I did think it was a nice twist that when they're first on the planet and they're looking for the Sodan, they're doing all this, and then to have them be antagonistic and shooting at them and ugly, I thought it was kind of nice, rather than Brother Jaffa, like, we're all part of a group. I kind of liked it. It was a nice twist to me that they weren't excited that the Earthlings have come to save them or meet them or whatever.
Yeah. And they don't really respect other Jaffa either, because they're like, we want our freedom thousands of years ago. Like, what have you been doing all this time? Because I think they said they were servants of some Gould, and they became, super elite force of Jaffa. And then, they just eventually decided to kill him and, get their freedom. And like, what has everybody else been doing this whole time? Like, we did this. And I think that when we see the Sodan again, I think that'll be a thread that comes up too, is they do talk about that. I think with one Teal'c, I think, because I believe Teal'c meets them eventually in that one of those later episodes when they come up. So
they're basically just hipsters. They're saying they were doing it before it was cool.
Yeah.
We killed our false god before it was cool.
Exactly. I do like how we get a really good Peter DeLuise firefight, though, at the beginning of the episode, where he gets to blow up a tree. Again, he gives, Peter DeLuise gives Christopher Judge the big saw, machine gun whenever he can. And apparently, they're blanks, but Christopher Judge apparently like ran through like 100 rounds like instantly, is like, and those things are, I think they're probably $5 or $6 a piece. Those rounds. So he had a lot of fun.
I mean, if someone gives you a chain gun, you're going to want to
Yeah.
Pull the trigger on that thing until it's empty.
Yeah.
Can't blame him.
I did like in that initial scene too of they're following Teal'c and he's doing his tracking thing and being silent and they're like, oh, and Ben and Jackson are just, or Ben Mitchell and Jackson are just kind of going back and forth like he's making it up, right? He's not seeing anything, and then they pause and they're like, oh, is it there? And Teal'c's like, there's nothing, and then so because he can kind of sense. He has those kind of extra senses, from honed from hundreds of years or however old he is. So I just thought that was a pretty funny, interesting too.
Yeah, just them quipping about Teal'c behind his back.
Yeah.
his impression of Teal'c needs more bass.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah, and then we get the final confrontation at the end, where Mitchell kind of predictably loses the fight, but he is not actually dead because Jolnak has given him the elixir that makes him appear to be dead.
Yeah, and this was a conscious homage to the Kirk-Spock fight in Amok Time where Bones, knocks Kirk out in order to have Spock not kill him.
Yeah.
And so we get a line, he says, "Nice work, Bones," to Jalon after he wakes up. So I thought that was and on the commentary, Gary Jones did the commentary with Peter DeLuise, and apparently Gary Jones did, a lot of sketch and improv comedy, and one of the shows he did was Star Trek the Musical, where he got to play Kirk, and they would, reenact that fight scene. And the one requirement that Gary Jones said before he signed on to do the Star Trek the Musical show was that, when he does that fight, he has to be able to just like rip his shirt off like William Shatner did. And the joke was that when he would rip off his shirt, he was wearing like a full girdle underneath it. Yeah, so if you could go back in time, 25, 30 years, you could probably watch that show in Vancouver.
Wonder if anyone videotaped it and if it's online anywhere.
We'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Probably so. By the way, my husband goes, "That's a Star Trek reference. Make sure you bring that up on the podcast."
Yeah.
So thanks, honey.
I'm just sad they didn't have the amazing Amok Time fight music going on.
Yeah.
Or do the Jim Carrey thing where he's humming it while he's fighting.
in Cable Guy, right? Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a good episode. Cameron Mitchell is really growing on me, so
Yeah.
happy about that.
Oh, we did have some foreign language titles. In Italian, we got Il Vero Nemico, which is the true enemy. In French, we get Pour l'honneur, which is for honor.
Mm.
And then in Japanese, we got Sodan no Senshi, which is Warriors of the Sodan.
All those titles are better than the American title.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did they explain
Should have
it
been the Sodan, yeah,
in the
something
commentary?
like that.
No,
Why it's
no.
called Babylon?
They really only explain the Damian Kindler titles if he's doing the commentary.
Okay.
If he's not there, they really don't explain it.
Because seriously, y'all were like, "We're doing Babylon this week," and I'm like, "Did I watch that? Is that the one
Yeah.
I watched?"
Yeah, I think it probably just had something to do with like it's a reference to an ancient society, an ancient civilization, and it just kind of I think it's just that's all it is. But maybe there's a deeper layer that we don't know.
Maybe.
Or he was listening to a lot of reggae or something.
I was going to make the same joke. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say maybe we have a listener out there who like understands this title and can share it with us. What does it mean? I don't know.
Maybe it's a reference to the Ori being like Babylon, coming to take the Sodan from their freedom. I'm reaching there. Awesome. Did you have any other thoughts on this episode?
Nope.
No,
No.
it was a good one.
Yeah. Before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Stargate, including Kathy S., Mark M., Father Nathan L., Andrew B., and Tristram C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and you can find the video versions at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Stargate and to send us feedback, you can visit sqpn.com/Stargate. You can email us at stargate@sqpn.com and follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on X at SQPN. And be sure to check out the SQPN Discord at sqpn.com/Discord. And we'll be back next time with our 200th episode, where we'll be going over our favorite Stargate episodes, moments, and all sorts of other stuff. I think our favorite kwooshes, as Victor said. Until then, Jeff Haecker, thank you for joining us and sharing the secrets of Stargate.
Thanks, Jack.
And Lisa Jones, thank you as well.
Thanks, Jack.
And Victor Lambs, thank you too.
Thanks, Jack, and the warriors of the Sodan exist, Colonel Mitchell. I am certain of it.
That's what they all say. And once again, I'm Jack Baruzzini. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?